Hello, welcome to a talk titled Advancing Pattern Image Data Analysis using Topology Graph-based representations and methods. For the AI and Pattern Data Workshop, I would like to thank the AI and Pattern Data Workshop primary organizer, Mr. Dean Alderucci, Director of Research for the Center for Artificial Intelligence and Pattern Analysis at Carnegie Mellon University, for inviting me to give this talk. This is Li Pingyang. I'm an assistant professor of geographic information science and computer science at the University of New Mexico. I direct the GeoAIR Research and Visualization Lab. The major content covered in this talk is my very recent work that I have done at Los Alamos National Laboratory before I joined my current position. Before I go into my talk, I would like to share two quotations with you. The world is one big data problem. We are moving slowly into an era where big data is the starting point, not the end. This slide provides the roadmap for my talk. First, I will introduce the motivation. Then I will introduce some major concepts that will get you prepared to understand the rest of my talk. After that, I will introduce the very simple but very powerful image representation called a skeleton graph that I proposed to deal with the pattern image data, followed with three applications, which serve as an effective demonstration of the usage of my image representation, which include image classification, image denoising, and line segment detection. Finally, I will wrap up my talk with a brief conclusion. So my work is motivated when I talk about photo search versus drawing search. What is this? When you ask Google, they can actually tell you pretty good. They can find the similar images that matching the input image. But when you ask Google search engine, what is this? Google cannot tell. Google can only find the copies. So the overall goal for the project I worked on was at the Los Alamos National Laboratory is the diagram image retrieval, identifying and return visually similar images for a query diagram image, for example, pattern images. So let's see, before I go into conduct the work, I need to check some basic computer vision techniques. So let's first see the challenges when we come into the pattern images processing. How many straight line segments you can see from this simple diagram image? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? If we do not count the curves. Guess how many straight line segments machines see? We can see the machine sees many tiny small line segments. You can see if I remember correctly, it's about 150 tiny line segments. So let's see the same diagram image. How many corner points you see? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? If we do not count the corner points around on the curves. So guess how many corner points the machine sees? When I use the computer vision algorithm to do this task, I need to input one of the parameters asking me how many points you want. This is not robust, right? The algorithm. If we already know how many points we want to return, why we need to use the computer vision techniques to do this? So when I set the parameter as 100 points, it returns these results. The green points represent the corner points the algorithm detected. Then let's see, if I set the points as 50, the parameter corner points I want is 50, then we can see they return this amount of corner points. Okay, so in the rest of I will show you some of my recent work related to pattern image data analysis. Before I go into the major content of my talk, I would like to introduce some concepts that will get you prepared to understand the rest of my talk. First concept is called data representation. So what's data representation? It's the form, how the data is stored, processed, and transmitted. For example, this image we saw the digit 8. In the computer, they actually stored as a matrix like this. Then the performance of machine learning methods is strongly dependent on the data representation features to which they are applied. For example, the same, they represent a river branch. You can use both the raster representation and also a vector representation. The major difference between the raster and vector representation is when you zoom in, you see the pixels, but when you zoom in the vector data sets, you will not see the pixels. Then another concept I want to talk about is the feature engineering. If you want to know more about feature engineering, you can check my recent paper here. Some machine learning projects succeed and some fail. What makes the difference? The most important factors are what features are selected and used. So machine learning usually requires feature engineering, but deep learning doesn't. However, deep learning requires a large set of annotated data. This is kind of, to some extent, it's the manually annotation is kind of label intensive. It's another way, we can view it's another way of feature engineering, right? Because it's both feature engineering and manual labeling data takes time, label intensive. So the next concept I want to introduce is image skeleton. If you want to know more about this, you can check my recent paper, CVP paper here. So a central line is, an image skeleton is a central line, 1 pixel wide representation of an image that present in an image. So let's say in this example, this is original input image. Now the image skeleton is corresponding image skeleton. This is a seen version of the input image. So the skeleton emphasizes the topological and geometrical properties of shapes. The last concept I want to introduce you is called topology graph. So it's if you want to know more about the topology graph, you can check my paper published here. And it's a set of nodes and edges. A graph contains a set of nodes and edges. The nodes can represent objects, and the edges represent the relationship between the nodes, the connecting nodes. So it's a topology graph is an intuitive, powerful data structure and a data representation framework because it can capture the topological relationships and the spatial arrangement among entities that are present in an image. For example, you may not understand the topology graph concepts explicitly, but we use it a lot in your everyday life. For example, check this road network. We can see if we view this as a bus stop, then if this 2 bus stop is connected, then we can use a line to connect them, which is called edges here. Also, we can also use a graph to represent a social network. For example, if each nodes here represent a Twitter account, then if this is your Twitter, this is your friend Twitter. If you have connections connecting on the Twitter, you can have a link, an edge to connect them. So now I will talk about the effective image representation I proposed. The image representation proposed is called a skeleton graph. So it's a topological graph generated from image skeletons. You are already get prepared what's a topological graph, right? It's a set of node and edges. Then what's a skeleton, right? It's a thin version, 1 pixel wide of the thin version of the input image. So let's see the main proposed image representation. This is input image. Then we can see we first generate the skeleton, which is a single version of the input image. Then we generated the skeleton graph from the image skeleton. We can see how this skeleton graph is generated. For each point in the image skeleton, okay, we represent it as nodes. Then if they are the neighbor nodes, then in the image skeleton, we use a line to connect them. It's a simple, right? Again, input image, a single version image, which is the image skeleton. Then we get the image skeleton graph from the image skeleton. So again, each pixel represents nodes in the image skeleton. And if there are neighbor pixels in the image skeleton, we use a line to connect them. This all is neighbors, we use line to connect them. So this work image skeleton representation is published in my recent paper here. So now it's simple, right? And intuitive. Now I will show how powerful the image skeleton representation I proposed. So the first application is called image classification. Let's see the major image classification workflow using the topology graph features. It's extracted from the image skeleton graph representation I proposed. This piece of work is published in my recent paper here. And we first input images, then we do the image skeleton extraction. Then we do the skeleton graph, okay? This is very simple, right? Very straightforward and intuitive. You already understand this workflow. Now, once we get the skeleton graph, we will extract the topological features from the graph. For example, cycles. So this, for example, this example, they have one cycle. This should have two cycles, but they are not close, so they are detect one cycle here. So let's see one more example here. So the digits 9, we can see in this skeleton graph, they have one cycle. For this the handwriting digits 9, they have two cycles. But do not worry, if we have enough data sets, the machine learning algorithm will be able to detect they are both under the category digital 9. So the next step is we need to train and evaluate machine learning models. So in this piece of work, we use multiple machine learning models, random forest, support vector machine, and neural network for image classification using extracted topological features. Then we can fit it into. We also do the hyperparameter tuning, the k-fold cross validation. Then we evaluate the model using the best parameters. So the advantage of our approach is it gives the competitive results with a very small set of training data, and it's faster to train and are much less sensitive to hyperparameter tuning. So let's see, the example here is we compare let's see some experiments and results. We first run the support vector machine learning algorithm on the hands-on writing digits, the minutes data sets. Then we compared with against using our topological features extracted from the skeleton graph. Then also we'll use the hog features, which is called the histogram or oriented gradients. This is a well-known hog features in computer vision area. So let's see, when we use the run the support vector machine using hog features, you can see this solid line means best parameter, best model, and this dashed line means the baseline model, which means the default parameters. Now we can see there is a large room between the baseline and the baseline. This is not good thing. That means this model is very sensitive to the hyperparameters. But when using our topological features extracted from our skeleton graph representation, you can see the baseline model and best model there is a very narrow gap. That's a good thing. That means the data scientists do not sit there to the long time to do the select the feature engineering and get the best parameters. Okay, the next is we can compare to the computation time. You can see when the SVM model using the hog features, the best model takes a very long time to train. Then for the baseline model, it still takes a much longer time than ours. You can see for our best model, when we're using a topology features extracted from our skeleton graph, it takes a very short time to train. Or you might ask, maybe your topology features are tailored for the support vector machine learning model, but to demonstrate topology features works for other machine learning algorithms. We also run the same data sets, hands writing digits, minutes data sets on the random forest algorithm. We can see even though it performs much better than the support vector machine learning algorithm, we still see for the baseline model and best model, they are still much larger gap compared with when we use our topological features. You can see our methods are much less sensitive to the hyperparameter tuning, which is a good thing. So now let's see the times to train the random forest when using hog features and when using topology features we proposed. So you can see the random forest, when you're running on the hog features, the best model takes a very long time to train. Then the baseline model still takes, when we use our model, even the best model is only takes much less time compared with the random forest when running with the hog features. So you also run this results on another machine algorithm called neural network. We can see when we use our topology features or methods, when have a very small training data set, which is 100, 500, they already reach pretty good results. But when we use this when we use the hog features, they need to much larger to reach the good training accuracy score. And you can see it, neural network, everyone knows neural network is very time consuming when you come to the training. So you can see when you use the neural network hog features, it takes much time. For the best model, it takes a very long time to train. Even for topology features, it still takes much longer time to compare with random forest and also the SVM. So, but we can see it's even for the time-consuming neural network or methods, when using topology features we propose, it's still much less time compared with the hog features. Okay, if you need to know more about the piece of work, check my recent paper here. So let's demonstrate the effectiveness of the image representation I proposed for the image denoising. So the image denoising workflow using the topology graphs is we first input this piece of work is published in this SCCV workshop paper. So if we input this image, this is get from a pattern database image, then we first get the image skeleton from the input image, a signal version. Then this is we generate the skeleton graph from the image skeleton. When this is zoom in detail, eventually you can see, for each node in the skeleton graph, we use a node to represent them. If they are neighbor pixels in the skeleton graph, we use a line to connect them. Next step is to detect landmark nodes. This is from a zoom in detail, otherwise we cannot see the zoom nodes, the landmark nodes here. So the red nodes represent junction nodes, then the blue nodes represent turning nodes, and the green nodes represent the end nodes. That means they only have these nodes only have one neighbors. So then once we get this junction landmark nodes like junction nodes, end nodes, and turning nodes, we use these nodes to segment the existing graph. So for example, we use the junction nodes here. We separate this the whole graph to these two segments, the blue, green, and then this the red one. Then after that, once we get the segmented passes, we simplify the whole skeleton graph using the Douglas-Spooker algorithm. So how this works, let's see, for each pass that means each pass, like blue or green or red here, for each pass P, we do get the nodes from the pass. Then we calculate how many, the little n through how many nodes in this pass. Then if n is greater than 2, then we can calculate the convex hull of the nodes, then stored in the variable C. Then we use the area of the C divided by the parameter of C to get the single adaptive parameter in our approach is called epsilon. Then we simplify pass P using Douglas-Spooker algorithm with the epsilon, parameter epsilon. Let's see how this Douglas-Spooker algorithm works. For example, this is all the nodes and length represent the original path. Then if we can see, if we choose this point, if the distance from this point to this line, which to the line formed by its neighbor points, we can see if this distance is larger than the epsilon, we just drop this, remove this nodes. Do the same thing for all. Then after we do this thing, all this, then we can move all these light gray points. Then we eventually get this blue and the dark, solid nodes simplified path. Okay, so let's see some experiments and results. We compared with the state-of-art methods in image denoising, including TV, total variation, and NLM, non-local mean. Then when this is input image, we can see then this is the results of the using TV L1 node. This is using the this is results using the NIM methods. Then this is our methods. We can see our methods are much better than the other two methods, right? Then let's see one more example here. We input this image, then we use the compare with the NIM again. Then the wavelet, you can see our methods is much better than the other two methods. Even though this part is there is some that perfect, but they can capture this zigzag and this line pretty good. So if you want to check more examples, you can see our methods is here is do much better job for most for all the example data we use. And then if you want to know more about the explanation of experiment results, check our recent paper, SSA paper here. So we already see our proposed skeleton graph image representation is very effective for the image denoising and image classification. Now I will show you the last application, line segment detection using the image presentation I proposed. So we can see the input images here is actually from pattern images. So we input the image, then we get this is what humans can see. This is manually labeled by the humans, the green lines. The line segment, but this is what the machines can see. This result is coming from the state-of-the-art line segment detection methods with LineLit. It's published in IEEE TPAMI journal, which is the #1 journal in the computer vision deep learning area. It's published in 2017. You can see the results. There is a lot of tiny lines segments. So our line segment detection workflow using our TG lines. We name it TG line, topology graph guided line segment detector. So we input the diagram image, then we do the image skeleton instruction. This work is published in this manuscript. Please check it if you are interested. So then we do the skeleton graph generated from the image skeleton. So we zoom in detail, you can see. Then we can, from the skeleton graph, further zoom in detail of the skeleton graph. Then we detect the cylinder nodes. Then we can see these tiny nodes. The red nodes, junction nodes, what that means it has more than 2 neighbor nodes. Then it's the junction nodes. The blue nodes represents the tiny nodes. These red nodes in junction nodes because they have more than 2 neighbors. The blue nodes represent tiny nodes. That means it has 2 neighbors, but it has sharp turning. So after that we use the cylinder nodes to segment the skeleton graph to passes. Then we can see that here the image skeleton are segmented to 3 segments: the orange, pink, and the gray. Then we use the Douglas-Book algorithm to simplify passes organized by the line segment connected graph. So let's see, this image shows the detected line segments organized by line segment connectivity graph. So you can see, we can see if there are all the segments detected in our methods, they are organized by another graph called a line segment connectivity graph. So this nodes represent this line segment and this line segment, they are neighbors, right? Because they connected through this node. Then we use one node to represent this line segment, the red segment, and one node to represent this blue segment. Then we use a line to connect that to indicate these 2 line segments are connected. So let's see some experiment and the results. This line segment detector is named LSD, is the very classical well-known line segment detectors in the literature. We input the image, then we can see when you use the LSD, the line segment detection, the results are like this. Then when we use LineLit, the state-of-the-art methods for the line segment detection, we can see the results is pretty poor, right? They have many broken line, tiny line segments. But when we use our TGG line methods, it's very crispy. It's very good. Then let's see another example. Here, we input this the pattern image. Then when we use LSD, the results is not good. When we use ED line, another state-of-the-art method called edge join lines, the result is much poorer compared with LSD. You can see a lot of lines are missing and they are broken line segments. When you use our methods, it's very well, much better compared with the state-of-the-art methods and the classic methods for the line segment detection. When you use the TG lines, this is a column shows our results. This shows the input image. Then we come. This shows the ground truth where humans manually label them. Then we compared with the full state of mass methods for the line segment detection, which called PPHD, progressive probability whole transform, LSD, and ED lines, as well as Lenit. Let's see, all methods perform the best. Let's check more example here. All methods perform much better than all the other state-of-art methods. Then the advantages of TG lines are TG line outperforms the full state-of-art methods, PPHD, LSD, ED line, Lenit. And in our methods, we only require one parameter, and it's adaptive. So line segments detected by our TG lines are organized by a line segment connectivity graph. So not a loose set of segments like other methods detected. So you may ask why TG line works so well? The main reason that the state-of-art methods are failed is because the persistent zigzag noise. You can see this is zoomed in detail, so you can see there are zigzag noises here in low quantity pattern images. So the state-of-art methods are built on either edges or local gradients. All TGG lines can handle zigzag noises very well by leveraging the topological and geometrical analysis. And our methods does not rely on edge detection or local gradients. That's why our methods works very well. Again, this piece of work is published on this paper. So we introduced the topology graph-based presentation for intelligent pattern image data analysis. We already demonstrated the three applications for the effective usage of the image representation we proposed for machine learning and machine vision. So many applications can build on top of our topology graph image representation called a skeleton graph. So in early this year, around June, I primarily organized a CVPR workshop called GeoAIR. So the accepted papers of the workshop can be accepted can found on this link. And all the videos, including keynotes and papers accepted to our workshop can be found on this link. And I also have a paper called Diagram Image Retrieval Analysis, Challenges and Opportunities. I would like to thank the DOE Laboratory Directed Research and Development Exploratory Research Grant I received when I was at Los Alamos National Laboratory. I also would like to thank the scientist graduate students who worked with me, Catherine, Min, and Manish. I look forward to interact with you in the live QA sessions during the workshop. Thank you for watching and have a great one.